I'm revealing the top sales tactics I've collected over the past 10 years, helping my clients generate millions of dollars in revenue. These are going to be the strategies the top companies in Silicon Valley are using to exponentially grow their businesses. And I'm going to show you how you can use this for yourself by compressing these 10 years of education into this single video. So if you're somebody who has to talk to somebody over the phone, do a video chat with them, or even meet them in person, I'm going to show you step by step how to explode your sales guaranteed. Now, the first tip I have for you is controlling the conversation. You see, most people actually get into sales because somebody probably in their life told them like, wow, you're so good at talking. You should be in sales. And the problem with this is that people get into sales because they think they're good at talking. But in reality, in order to make as much revenue as possible, it's not about who the best talker is, although that is somewhat important. It's about who the best listener is, right? You're basically listening to somebody's problems, figuring out, okay, like what do they actually want, and trying to connect the two between what they want and what you're selling. Now, when you're asking all these questions, what are you actually doing? You're controlling the flow of the conversation. So when I go into a sales meeting, for the most part, I already can predict 90% of what's going to happen. Now, they might give me different information depending on their background and their goals, but for the most part, everybody wants the same thing. So what I do is I take them through this flow, okay? So I just walk them through my entire sales process. From their perspective, they don't even realize they're being walked through a sales process. What it feels like to them is like they're probably just like, oh wow, Patrick's a really helpful person and I feel like I really want to buy something from him, right? But in reality, it's a step-by-step sales process where I know exactly what they're going to do, what they're going to say, how they're going to feel, and I control their emotions in order to pitch my products and services at the end and basically make them sell themselves, right? So if we were to kind of look at it from a flow perspective, a sales process generally looks like this. For most sales, selling in technology, selling consulting, selling all type of stuff in my 10 years of sales experience, it's always the same, right? First, you build rapport with the person, you build a genuine connection with them, get them to like you as a human being, right? Because the more they like you, the higher chances they will buy from you, right? The second is the agenda. So setting the agenda for the call, the expectations really, right? So what do both people expect on the call? Are you trying to sell them? Are you just trying to get information? This is where you kind of tell them what to expect. Discovery is basically learning about them. What are their pains? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? All these factors. And you can kind of see the majority of your calls based on discovery, getting to know the person. And only after you understand who they are, what they want, what are their dreams and aspiration, and what are their challenges, then you actually pitch them, right? So most people think that, selling is all about the pitch. It's not. It's just a small part of it. In fact, the biggest part of things is connecting with them as a human being, getting to know them, and then pitching later. And finally, after you pitch, obviously you go for the close, right? So every, sales process that I've ever been through, like 99.9% of the time, it's going to be like this. When you think about it like that, you start to understand that human beings are predictable. You can have this step-by-step system to sell anything. And I think in the beginning, for a lot of beginners out there, they're just kind of going in and just like, okay, let's see what happens, right? Let me just try to pitch them. But it doesn't really have to be like that. And this system that I'm showing you here, which is, the system I teach, it works like a charm. Doesn't matter what industry you're selling, doesn't matter what price point you're selling at, it just works, right? And I'll give you more examples of how to use this, but I just want to give you an idea that high level, this is a sales process that I use to take my prospects from total stranger to paying customer. And by the way, if you're somebody that's looking to close more deals, I highly recommend checking out HubSpot's Sales Trend Report. I put a link in the description for you to download it for free. Now, this is going to be relevant for anybody who wants to keep up with the trends, right? Because as you know, the economy is changing very quickly day by day. And also there's a rapid rise of AI. So instead of being negatively affected by these changes, why not take advantage of them and adapt to how the market is changing? So this is exactly what the Sales Trend Report covers. So my personal favorite section from this trend report is going to be the evolution from sales rep to consultant, where it specifically talks about the fact that when a prospect, right, a potential customer gets on the phone, they probably have already did a lot of research on your company and you before they want to make a decision, right? So what HubSpot is recommending is be more consultative, give them advice on what you think they should do for their business in order to achieve the goals that they want, rather than just talking about the features and benefits of your product or service, right? Sales in general is shifting more to how you can give more value rather than just trying to force a close, right? Now, this resource was made possible by HubSpot, our sponsor for today's video. So if you want to check out the free resource, check out the link in the description, and thank you, HubSpot. Now, one of the most valuable strategies I've ever used when it comes to my sales career over the past 10 years is uncovering pain. if there was like an 80-20 of the most highest value skill you need to have, it's going to be this: looking for the pains that your prospect has and using those pains against them in a way to get them to sell themselves and buy your services and products, right? So if you look at the sales process, right, a big part of it is going to be the discovery call. And the reason for why this part is so big is because all you're really doing is asking a bunch of questions to understand really their pains. You basically want to take a small, tiny pain that they have in their business or their life, and you want to make them realize how bad it is, right? And this is what we call a latent pain. A latent pain is basically a pain somebody has, but they don't know they have. And then you make them aware they have the pain, and they're like, oh my God, I never knew that this was a problem. I got to do something about it. And it just so happens that you're selling something that solves this specific pain, right? And so that's how you actually get someone to sell themselves. Because when you put this into practice, what actually happens is the prospect feels like they had the idea by themselves. So in persuasion, when you get the other person to feel like they came to the conclusion on themselves, it's much more easier to sell them because it doesn't feel like you forced an idea into them. What you're actually doing is you're planting a little seed inside their mind, right? And there's a funny saying where they're like, even an acorn can grow into a mighty tree, right? And that's basically what you're doing. You're planting this little acorn in their head, and then you're watering it, right? By asking these questions to understand their pain. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, after like 15 minutes of talking, they're suddenly realizing how much of a problem they have in their business, right? Now, the key to making this work is that whatever problem that you're making them aware of, you have to also understand there's many different ways to solve that problem. So you have to kind of make the flow of the conversation go in a way where your solution just so happens to feel like it's the best for them. So let me give you an example, right? So let's say, I'm talking to a creator, somebody who has a following on social media, but maybe, they don't know how to turn these followers into customers, right? So they get a lot of views, but they don't make a lot of money. And this is a common problem many creators have. Now, if you think about it, there's many ways to solve this problem. This person can sell a service. They can sell a course. They can sell a physical product. They can do affiliate marketing, right? So there's infinite ways to make money once you have a following. Now, if I'm selling a service, teaching them how to create high-end services to sell to their followers, right? So I'm like, hey man, you got 100,000 followers, and one of the best ways to monetize is to charge high ticket. You want to charge $2,000 to $5,000 and offer a white glove premium service to help them with XYZ. Depends on their specialty, right? The reality is this is actually one of the best ways for a creator to make money because you only need a few customers per month to make it worth it, right? Like if you have 5 clients and each one's going to be $2,000, then that's $10,000 for the month, right? Another person who might also see the same opportunity and the same prospect who might specialize in selling something else might say, hey man, you don't want to go high ticket. What you want to do is you want to sell a $500 product. This way, you don't have to sell them on the phone. You can just create a landing page, tell everybody to check it out, and then you'll be printing money, by just making content and telling people to go to that page. Now, both solutions actually can work, right? I personally have done both of them, right? You can do the $500 course and sell that and not have to deal with any, headaches logistically and sales calls and all that stuff. But you can also go higher end and look for a higher premium customer who has the money to pay you more for these services. Which one is better? It just depends on what you want to do as the creator, right? So if you're the salesperson and you're trying to figure out how you can get them to realize that your way of doing it is the best, this is where the art of sales begins. Because in reality, they could go in any direction and they can be successful in any direction they took. Whether it's the low ticket offer, whether it's the high ticket thing, or whether it's they just do something completely separate, like they sell physical products, right? They can make money in all of them. But you have to make them realize that, hey, you could do all these things, but here's why, my personal opinion, you should go, $2,000 to $5,000 per client and even charge more if you're capable of doing that. And then I would explain to them all the benefits of doing this, how I've been doing it myself, how I help my clients do this as well. And they're going to think, okay, Patrick definitely makes sense here. I can see myself doing that. And so, let's give it a shot. But in order to make them realize this or make them realize that they want to go with you, you have to drive the pain as hard as possible. Because the more pain that you create for somebody, the more desperate they are to find a solution. Now, I use the word desperation not in a negative way. So don't think, oh, Patrick's being manipulative, right? It's just like human nature. Because I've been on enough sales calls to kind of realize these kind of things. People are going to buy emotionally and they're going to justify their decisions logically. So if a creator was making a bunch of videos every single week, hundreds of thousands of views every video, but they're just not making any money. So what I would do in that kind of scenario is, one, I would empathize with them. I would adjust my tone to feel more empathetic and show that I really care about them, which I do, right? It's not fake. And number three, I would kind of offer a solution and kind of challenge the way they do things in order to get them to see the way I see, right? So I'd be like, hey man, like I see you making those videos. They're really good, but I'm just really curious to understand, like, you're grinding these videos, day after day, but it's not really making much money. Like, do you feel like you can continue doing this, forever, or do you feel like something needs to change, right? Because if I were you, I would be tired at this point. And then what's going to happen? They're going to be like, oh my God, you're like, Patrick, you get me. I've been grinding these videos, and these sponsors that I'm trying to get, they don't want to pay me anything, and I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this audience. I can't make money. And I'll be like, okay, like, well, talk to me, man. Like, what have you tried so far? And then they're going to go into the pains of, I tried this, I tried that. It didn't work. I took this guy's course. It didn't work for me either. And based on whatever that person told me, I would basically reverse what they say to make my solution sound a lot better, right? So if they said, I bought a person's course and I didn't get any extra help, the course was good, but then I ran into a lot of roadblocks and I didn't know what to do for the next step. So then when I pitch my thing, I'll be like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting, because, for our program, not only do we have a course, but we have coaching calls every single week. And not only that, but you can see your peers, all the other people in the course as well. And they're all asking questions so we can learn together as a community. So that little bit of, a little bit of selling that I'm doing there, it only really works if I first listen to the person's problems to understand that the last thing they didn't work because there was no community and there was no coaching. So that when I bring up the fact that I do that kind of stuff, they're a lot more likely to listen. They're going to feel like, oh my God, wait, what? I wish my other thing had that. So this is exactly what I want to do. And so that's how you drive the pain. You basically ask questions to understand their problem. And then whatever problem they tell you, you just reverse engineer it to position your solution as filling in that gap that the other guys couldn't do. Now you might be wondering, okay, you understand the idea of like asking these questions to understand their pain, right? But another question people might have at this point is, how do you even earn the right to ask those questions? Because you can't really just, ask somebody, hey man, like, can you tell me your deepest, darkest secrets? There's a level of trust somebody has to have in you in order to tell you the things that they wouldn't tell their friends, they wouldn't tell their, lover, they wouldn't tell their employees, right? Sometimes, like when I'm on these sales calls, a lot of entrepreneurs, they have these fears and these doubts and these things that really keep them up at night, but they don't feel like they have anyone to talk to about it. And so what you want to do as a salesperson or selling anything, you want to build that level of trust where, it's like a safe space. I know that sounds very like woo-woo, ha-ha, like, are you a therapist now? Kind of, you're actually listening to their problems and you're helping them solve it. So that's how you get people to sell themselves, right? It's not even pushy. It's like you're literally listening to them and reverse engineering their fears, their doubts, and understanding their aspirations and helping them get to where they already want to go. Now, one of the best ways to do this is to ask an insightful question. Now, there's a very specific way that I personally ask questions, and I'm going to show you. And I've been doing this, like the technique, for like 10 years. I first learned it actually at Oracle, right? Somebody taught it to me. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is like a game changer. Okay. So I kind of modified it and used it for so many years. And so I'm going to give it to you so that, you can use it for yourself, right? So how do you ask an insightful question? There's 3 parts. The first part is you make some type of observation or insight, right? So what you want to do is you just state a fact or you state something you see. So if you are selling website design services, what you do is you go on the person's website and you find where their website is really weak. So let's say their website looks like it was built in the 2000s, right? And it's 2024 now. Well, their reputation online kind of looks cheap because their website doesn't look good. So when you're on the sales call and you want to sell this kind of service, you would point that out and you would say, hey man, like I was checking out your website, it's not bad, it looks pretty clear, but I was just curious to understand, like, how come you guys haven't updated it? I actually used the Wayback Machine to see what it looked like 10 years ago and it's exactly the same. So obviously it's working if you left it like that, but I'm curious to understand, like, why haven't you guys changed it yet? That's the observation first. And I kind of already jumped the gun a little bit to go to the second part, which is the insight. So once I said, like, hey, like your website hasn't changed, I used the Wayback Machine to see that you haven't changed it in 10 years. So I can make the insight of saying something like, how come you haven't changed it yet if you want to stay up to date with the modern times, right? If you want people to perceive you as a high value service, right? That's my insight. So my question from there would be, I'm curious to understand, how come you guys haven't upgraded it yet? Right? And so you can kind of see it's an observation, an insight, and then it's a question. So I'll give you another example of this, right? So let's say you're selling some kind of AI chatbot and you put it on someone's website to capture leads, right? People visit the website and, if they don't do anything on the website, it's a lead loss. So why not talk to another human being, but replicate that with AI, right? So I could be like, hey man, I noticed that your website, it looks good, but it doesn't really have a good way to capture leads, especially because, you're getting 10,000 visits per month and probably, you're only getting 10 to 20 leads per day. And I think it could be a lot higher. From my personal experience, a lot of people right now are using AI to, create like an AI representative to talk to people as they go on the website and capture their information so that they have a high likelihood to book a call, then you can sell them later. So I was curious to understand if, AI was something that you ever looked into or, implemented in your business. Observation, insight, question. Made an observation on their website, had some insight for them to share consultatively how other people are generating more leads and revenue using AI. Then I asked them a question. Have you guys ever done it? Now, it's kind of a yes or no question, which most people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But it's okay sometimes, right? It gets the conversation going. So they'll probably be like, oh, no, we never really looked into AI. Then I would ask the follow-up question. Okay, well, why not? Right? I mean, it seems like that's the trend right now, and it's one of the best ways to generate leads. So, was there something like stopping you from looking into it? Oh, no, I've been using ChatGPT a little bit, but I'm just not really aware of like how it works. So what am I doing here? I'm asking an intelligent question to make them realize that, hey, AI is really cool, but they haven't really looked into it too deeply. And now I can come in as a salesperson to help them get educated on that specific subject, right? And so next time you want to ask any of these type of questions, use this format, and then suddenly your questions are going to be so much more impactful. It's going to show that you're listening to the prospect. When you show you're listening, it's just going to build so much more trust with them, and they will tell you all of this information. Okay, so the next tip that I have for you is going to be building rapport. Now, when it comes to rapport, what you basically want to do is you want to get the person to instantly like you the first 5 seconds of meeting you, right? Now, it really comes down to a couple things. The first one is your physical appearance. Now, people will judge you based on how you look. So if you're doing a video call and your background looks horrible, or your audio sounds terrible, all these kind of things, they're going to judge you as someone that's not trustworthy, right? But if you got like a nice mic, background's looking good, you're dressed presentably, you don't have to wear a suit in every, meeting or anything. Because these days, people aren't really wearing full-on suits anymore, but you definitely just want to look presentable, right? And then from there, after your physical appearance, it's going to be your tonality. So it's how you sound, right? So how you sound is actually super important, especially when it comes to sales. Over the phone, where they don't even see your face, right? Where it's just like over a call. Because when somebody has full control over their tonality, they can actually kind of manipulate someone's emotions to get them to like them as a person just from the way they sound. So just want to think of it like if you ever listen to the radio, right? And the radio host always or usually has like a very soothing kind of voice, like something like, you're listening to Kiss FM. You know what I mean? It's like this radio, nice kind of voice, right? Usually for me, the technique I like to do is I like to make it very calm, soothing, but assertive and energetic, right? So it's not too low and boring. It has a lot of energy, but it's not too much. And the tone of voice that I'm talking about is kind of the one I'm using right now as we are making this video, right? So, to give you an idea. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll basically copy and match the tone of the other person I'm talking to once, there's like we're, 15 seconds in, 30 seconds in. So if I've noticed that somebody speaks more lower tone, more slower, then I'm going to basically just mimic them. It's not really being fake. And, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, are you just copying them? Kind of, right? But it's still me. It's not being, it's just a version of me that matches their energy. And because I match their energy and their whole vibe, right? It's just a feeling. They feel like they can trust me so much more. For you guys, you have to learn how to listen to the way somebody speaks, to hear the way they speak and basically copy them, right? From the body language that they have, the tone that they're speaking in, how loud or soft they're speaking, how fast they're speaking. And then when you get more advanced, you start learning how to mimic their physical actions, right? So if I'm sitting with somebody in person, depending on how they're sitting, how they're leaning and things like that, I will actually do like these mimic or these mini micro physical gestures that kind of copy them. It's very advanced actually, right? But it definitely does work, you know? So like the extreme version is like if they drink a cup of water, I'm drinking a cup of water, right? It won't feel fake. You won't even notice it. That's the thing, right? If they're crossing their legs and they're sitting relaxed, I might just sit in a more relaxed position. I don't have to cross my legs, but I will be relaxed just as they are relaxed, right? So it's mimicking all these factors, and it's just going to build so much more rapport, right? Like the ultimate example is if you dressed like somebody, you felt like you were in the same industry as them, you talked like them, you have the same energy as them, the way you think about the industry is the same as them. They're going to be like, oh, wow, this guy gets it. And so for anybody that you're selling to, you want to create that feeling. And you might be of different ethnicities, you might dress differently, you might talk differently, but you have to kind of massage and adjust the way you do things depending on who your ideal customer is. Because if you're not meeting them, where they're at, you have to understand that people will judge you. And if they think you're too different from themselves, they probably won't like you as much. I know that's just how the world works, but that's just how the game goes, right? And by the way, if you're somebody who is trying to start a business, or maybe you already have a business but needs to learn how to generate more leads, whether it's you with cold email, LinkedIn, or even creating content online like I'm doing, and you want to learn how to close more deals and get more clients, you definitely want to check out a free group that we created called Founder X. We're going to have some free courses for you teaching all of these things, and also live weekly webinars, and I'm going to be in there as well, giving advice where I can. So if you want to check that out, link is in the description to join the Founder X group. Here's going to be one of the best tips I have for you when it comes to building trust and making a sales call not very salesy. And that's really just setting the right expectations, right? So I'll show you exactly how I do it when I'm on the call. So when I'm building rapport with somebody in the beginning, I'm going to go straight into setting expectations. So how the call typically goes is like, hey, John, how's it going, man? It's really great to meet you. Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Patrick. Okay, cool, man. I was actually just taking a look at your LinkedIn. It seems like you're calling all the way from Texas. Is that right? Yeah, man, I'm from Texas. Where are you from? I'm actually calling you from Vietnam. Oh, shoot, you're from Vietnam. Damn, must be like a whole different time zone over there. Yeah, it's kind of late night here, but I don't really mind. So, hey, how about we go ahead and get started? Yeah? Sure. Sounds good. So that's the building rapport side, right? Made a connection, connected with them with my tonality, pulled one thing I saw from their LinkedIn to make it feel like I did the research on them, which I did. And then I transition to the setting expectations. And all I'm saying is, hey, man, how about we go ahead and get started? Okay, cool. So listen very carefully, because this is how I personally do setting expectations for all my sales calls like today, right? And so it works for me. Chances are it will work for you. So I'm guessing you probably see my YouTube videos, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, for this call, it's really for me to get to know you a little bit, see what your goals are and see what your challenges are, and really see if I can help you in any way. Now, by the end of the call, if we find that, hey, I can help you, great. We can talk about what that looks like. But if not, totally fine. Is that cool with you? And obviously, they will always say, yes, that sounds good, right? What am I doing here when I'm setting expectations? I'm just letting them know what they should expect on the call. I'm basically saying, hey, I'm trying to learn about you, see what you're trying to do. What are your goals? You trying to start a business? How can I help? Right? What are your challenges? Where are you getting stuck? Where can I help? And I'm also saying at the end of the call, if it makes sense to work together, we will talk about what that looks like. So that's like them enrolling in the Founder X Pro program, getting one-on-one coaching from me, getting group coaching, right? Whatever the case is, I'm basically letting them know if it makes sense, I'll talk about it then. But for now, let's just learn about them first. And I'm also saying that, hey, if it's not a fit for whatever reason, let's say they don't have the budget for it, it's not the right time or whatever the case is, it's cool. Yeah, I'm letting them know it's fine to say no, right? It's no big deal. And then I'm also getting them to agree to these terms, right? Is that okay with you? Is that cool with you? And they will say yes. It's almost like you did a mini contract, right, of what to expect on the call. So people really appreciate that because they feel like they're in control. That's the main thing. Because I ask permission for every step of the way, they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, yeah, perfect with me. So it feels like they gave me the permission to control the entire conversation. And when I'm asking them for permission, they feel like they're in control. But in reality, like we talked about, the salesperson's in control of the entire sales conversation from the beginning all the way to the end. So it's all about perceived control. You control the entire conversation, but you make it feel like they control it. And so they feel like they are making all the decisions. When it's time for them to buy your product and services, they will feel like they made the decision and came to the conclusion on their own that whatever solution I'm selling is the best thing for them. And so I don't have to push that hard. They already convinced themselves. So selling begins the moment you meet somebody and build that rapport, because you're building trust, which enables you to use all these different techniques later on. Now, the next strategy I have for you is finding the hidden objections. I coach a lot of people, and a lot of times people always tell me or ask me like, hey, Patrick, like I had this meeting with this guy. They said everything was good, but then they didn't end up buying, and I kind of follow up, but they don't really want to talk to me anymore. What's going on? And so I'm going to give the advice I gave this person because it's pretty relevant for most people. Chances are, if somebody doesn't respond, there's a hidden objection that you didn't uncover during the discovery phase of the first sales call, right? So it also happens to me too. If I didn't find the objection, I'm like, hey, it seems like this person was a good fit. Why didn't they close? It must have been something that we didn't talk about, right? So that means that during the discovery call, you have to be a little bit more assertive when finding reasons for why somebody would say no. So what I personally like to do on my calls is at the end of the call, after I pitch them, I'm like, hey man, it seems like you're a really good fit for, the Founder X program. And it seems like the timeline and budget and everything works with you. But I'm just curious to know, like, just be real with me, right? Is there any reason for why, you wouldn't go through with this? And then I would pause. Silence, right? Dead silence. And I just wait for them to say something. And typically what they're going to do is say, well, everything sounds good, but, and then they give me some kind of objection. And, I don't get defensive about it, right? Because what I'm doing is I want them to tell me why it's no. They might say, I'm looking at these other programs right now. I'm trying to see which one's the best. And, I really like you, but I really like this guy's as well. So, I basically need a week to think about it. Now, if I never asked him this question, I would have never known, and the call would have ended there. And if he never went with my product and went with another, I wouldn't have had that feedback to understand how I can position myself as better as the other guy. But because I asked, now I know. And because I know, I can handle the objection on the call so he doesn't have to figure it out by himself. And so whatever you're selling, the way you find these hidden objections is just to ask, is there any reason for why you wouldn't move forward with this, right? And so an important part here is the only way to get someone to actually tell you the truth is if you built rapport with them throughout the entire conversation. So it's basically doing everything, not perfectly, but you have to do it pretty well, from building rapport, setting the agenda, asking questions, finding their pain, understanding their dreams, pitching your solution as a reverse engineered solution to their pains, right? You have to do all of these things in order to get to that last part, which allows you to ask this type of question. Now, if you don't do those parts, they're never going to tell you the truth. They're always going to lie to you. And I got to tell you, prospects lie all the time, right? That's just something you have to accept. You will be lied to on almost every sales call because people don't want to tell you the truth. It feels very icky for them, right? They don't want to buy right now, but they don't want to tell you no. And so if you didn't make them feel enough trust to tell you the truth, it's not their fault. It's your fault you didn't create a safe space for them to want to tell you the truth, right? For me personally, my philosophy is like, when you're selling to somebody, you're kind of like selling to a friend. You're helping them as if they are a friend. You wouldn't want to sell them if you don't want to work with them. And so when you come from that approach, your tone, the way you sound, what you say, how you pitch, it's going to be totally different versus if you were just trying to take someone's money and put it in your pocket. And so by doing all these things, you will build the trust and you will be able to sell more by just being a better person, right? It's kind of crazy. People think that in order to make more money in sales, you have to be this aggressive person. And I know on YouTube, there's a lot of these characters that teach a certain style of selling, but you have to think about, what are they selling? Is it a used car, right? Is it something like, where they can, like a loan, what are they selling? Because in tech, that's where I got my, in the beginning, that's where I learned the sales skills. You cannot trick someone into buying something because it's like, they'll just refund it, literally, right? Or your reputation will go down the drain. Like, you think if you worked at Oracle, you can trick, another large hospital to buy your services and they regret it? If that word gets out, no one's going to want to work with you again, right? And so I think depending on what you sell, your style of selling is going to be very different, right? So there's certain people that watch my videos, they resonate with my style. Now there's other people that sell different type of products. They'll resonate with a different type of style, right? And so, I'm just giving my perspective on what works for me, okay? Now, the next tip I have for you is going to be very important for my entrepreneurs out there. and that is to leverage fame. So this is something that I've been learning over the past few years, and I want to pass this lesson on to you because the way the world is moving, in my opinion, is that everybody will have a personal brand. Even if you're an account executive at a tech company, you will probably have a personal brand as well on LinkedIn, right? So the more famous you are in your particular niche, the easier it is for you to sell. Because number one, when you have a brand online, people will think of you as higher status, higher value. And because so many people follow you, you must know what you're talking about, whether that's true or not, right? So I've learned this from my experience, doing YouTube, right? First in, B2B sales and, entrepreneurship like we're doing now. I also have a crypto NFT YouTube channel as well. And I did a lot of consulting in that space too. And so what ends up happening is that when I go on sales calls nowadays in either niche, people actually think of me like a mini celebrity, right? They'll literally say, oh my God, like I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, but it's really just a sales call to me. But for them, it feels like, wow, I've been watching this guy for months. I love his videos and, he knows what he's talking about. So it's just so much easier to sell anything I have to offer. For you guys, I really do believe that the future is in the personal brand, whether you are an employee at a company or you're an entrepreneur selling your own services. Whatever it is you decide to sell, having a brand helps quite a lot, right? Especially because if you want to generate leads with your personal brand, all you really have to do is make videos, create content. Hey guys, comment coach in the description and I'll send you a DM, right? And then you're literally talking to them and getting meetings just like that. And so that's the hack I have for you guys. Build a personal brand because it is one of the most powerful assets you can have, and you can carry it with you for anything you do. Like you might start off as a sales rep at a company. Then you're like, okay, I learned some sales. Now I'm going to consult people. And because you already have a brand and people know who you are, it's much more easier to sell whatever you have. It like versus starting from zero, right? And even if you're a sales rep or doing any type of sales, selling for another person, chances are that person or that company spends a lot of money on marketing and branding, right? Like for example, if I worked at Oracle, which I did, how many millions of dollars are they spending on their marketing team to sponsor all these, the Oracle Arena and all these like crazy things, right? So they're doing so many things to get their name out there. And so when the sales rep, which was me getting on the call with a hospital or whatever, they already know who Oracle is. You know what I mean? They're like one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Now, applying it to entrepreneurs, you can do the same. Build a niche brand. You don't have to be that famous. A couple thousand followers can make you a good living and, use it to your advantage, right? So these days I'm leaning into the personal brand, right? And I'm kind of telling all my friends, around me who are entrepreneurs, like, yo, man, like you got to build a personal brand. It helps so much. And so that's something I'll leave with you. Build a personal brand. Now, if you need help building a personal brand, definitely check out the Founder X program like we talked about, because that's where I'm going to show you how to build a personal brand on LinkedIn and YouTube and turn your followers into paying customers. And so with that said, those are going to be some of my top sales tips for you, and I'll see you in the next one.